Superhero. Extraordinary ability. Moral conviction. Great courage. And a mission to serve. You are now listening to Rise from the Shadows.
Llama Lounge Takeover week continues as W. Scott Greene joins us on this episode of Rise from the Shadows. On this episode, Scott talks about an article he wrote a few years ago titled Attitude, Decisions, and Actions. Scott shares his appreciation of the silence, solitude, peace, and darkness of an early morning drive to work. It allows him moments of reflection and how he's in control of the day that lies ahead. He also acknowledges the intentional actions of those sharing the road with him, from a cross-country team to an older couple out walking. Our intentional decisions and actions define who we are. And to quote Scott Greene in this episode, the choice to overcome adversities is ours and ours alone. Scott also talks about not allowing others to influence our lives and not accepting mediocrity. You can now listen to this entire episode of Rise from the Shadows, Attitude, Decisions, and Actions at theshadowspodcast.com. Also available on our link tree. Go and support the Llama Lounge team over at llama.leadership.com. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy this episode of Rise from the Shadows.
Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning in. This is Scott Greene, co-founder of Llama Leadership and one of the hosts of the Llama Lounge podcast. And I want to talk to you a little bit about some experiences that I think are important to all of us. And it has a lot to do with my commute to work, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but there's a lot you can learn on a short drive. You see, it's usually pretty dark outside, and it's often pitch black when I start my drive to work in the morning. During my commute, I often think to myself, if anyone else shares the same appreciation for this experience, the darkness, the peace, the quiet, is there anyone else who appreciates the solitude of the early morning? And these hours hold opportunity to start a day of productivity. There's opportunity to reflect in the quiet of the morning about the impact I get to make for myself, for my family, for my coworkers, and for my community. I love the feeling of knowing that each day, each new day belongs to me. And I get to decide that that day is going to be my day. I love knowing that each day, my attitude is up to me. I love knowing that my decisions and my actions ultimately define who I am. One rainy morning during my drive to work, I noticed several runners along my route. This pack of young athletes appeared to be cross-country runners from the local high school. And while it was this pack of runners that initially caught my attention, the further along I traveled, I noticed more runners, and even some cyclists, and even some walkers of all ages and all abilities. These folks were up quite early in the morning, in the dark. They were hitting the streets, and they were breaking a sweat. I also imagined this group of nocturnal beings, they're being just like us. They all have hectic lives. They're no different than you and me. I imagine that they have the same stress, the same obstacles that we face, like work and school, finances. The difference for them compared to many others is they didn't let those challenges stop them from doing something that was important to them. They have determined that for whatever reason, to get healthy, whether it's preparing for an upcoming competition, whether it's stress release or just a simple method to clear their minds, they decided to be intentional in their actions. They have developed an attitude that determined that this morning is important to them. They made the decision to schedule their morning accordingly, and they took action. They have decided to get up in the morning, regardless of how well they slept last night, regardless of the weather, regardless of the million other reasons one could convince themselves to not get up. They decided to get up this morning, and they decided to move. We can all learn something from this example. The importance of staying committed to actions and routines that make you successful. Staying consistent helps you reinforce your commitment. Staying consistent helps you stick through the tough times without quitting. Finding that one win in the morning, whether it's a morning run, whether it's a prayer, whether it's something as simple as making your bed, sets the tone for the day, and it will do wonders for your attitude, for your enthusiasm, and for your productivity. Too often we give others power over our happiness and our success. We eat up precious time blaming others for our circumstances. And while others may influence certain outcomes, the choice to overcome adversities is ours and ours alone. Too often we fail to look back far enough to our troubles and challenges to identify where we had the wrong attitude or we made the wrong, if any, decision, and we failed to take the appropriate action. There is no victory or defeat by proxy. Our choices either limit us or grow us. Your attitude can do wonders for you. Your decisions can change your life. Taking the right action is solely up to you. You can and will create success and happiness if you allow yourself to. Ultimately, you decide to accept that you are in control of you. You have a choice on how you use your time and talents, and I encourage you to use them wisely, to use them to your advantage, and to use them to create success in your life.
First of all, Scott, thank you for that very uplifting message there. I mean, it was very different approach than some of our past episodes, which I really like. Folks, that article is available. Scott, where'd you say they could find that?
That's on the Llama Leadership website, LlamaLeadership.com.
If y'all have not already been over there, definitely go check them out. There are some phenomenal articles over there. I mean, lots of really good reads, as well as the podcast. So, I mean, anybody that listens to The Shadows knows that we're huge advocates for Llama Leadership. In fact, our 50th episode with you and Joe Bogdan on there.
That's right.
The takeover, Zimas and Axe body spray. So
and Funyuns.
And Funyuns, yes. So definitely check that episode out as well. Go check out their website. Attitude, you said in there, attitude is up to you. Why do you think it is that we are often persuaded or allow external, whether it's Facebook, social media, something, we allow so many other people to dictate our attitude to where, that's why I think your message is just super positive and super relevant with what's going on. Why do you think that is, that we're so easily persuaded into letting others dictate our outlook and views on life?
I think it's because it's such an easy excuse to use for our shortcomings. We've become a society where, honestly, I think we've gotten softer, not only physically but mentally as well, in a lot of cases, and so it's easy to just, if you're not successful, it's easy to just cast blame on somebody else, instead of really taking a look back and going, where did I make a mistake, or what could I have done a little bit differently? It's become commonplace for people to just allow other people's influence to bring them down. And when I was thinking about that article, and I wrote it a couple of years ago, and it was one of those things where I'm on this drive every morning to work, and I see these athletes, and I'm talking 14, 15-year-old kids from a high school, 6 o'clock in the morning. And it didn't matter if it was rainy, windy, hot. I live in South Texas, pretty humid. These kids are getting up and they're being intentional. And as I notice more and more as I drive, there's older folks out there, and there's people from all different walks of life out there. They're making their success a priority, And you can't win a race by proxy, right? You can't, if you're a cross country runner, somebody can't win that race for you, right?
Mhm.
You have to cross the finish line yourself. And I think we need to get back to that as a society of taking accountability for your success and for your failures. And if we continue to let other people influence us, as how many of those kids, and I think about when I was 14, 15 years old, and your friends convince you to stay up late, or hey,
Yeah.
let's watch some more Tony Hawk videos. I'm older than most people, so we used to watch VHS tapes, so we'd be up all hours of the night watching skateboard videos. It's easy to sleep in, but these kids really inspired me to start taking a look back at that again. If you really want something, if you really want success, if you really want a growth in your life, you have to take accountability for it and make it happen, and not just stand back and hope other people are going to push you along the way.
Why do you think that is? That even being like intentional with our own lives,
Yeah.
outside of other people talking to us, but us just taking that initiative to do things. Why do you think we struggle with that so much?
You know what? Because there's so many other people that struggle with it.
Mm.
And I think it becomes the culture.
Yeah.
I think it becomes the culture. When you look at like things like personal finances,
Yeah.
Should I really buckle down and not spend money in areas I shouldn't spend money in? Or, well, all my coworkers are going out to lunch this week, I should go with them. Hey, I really should spend more time exercising, take care of myself, but the people I surround myself with don't do that. So why should I take it upon myself if no one else is taking it upon themselves? So we create this atmosphere and this culture where we just accept mediocrity, and that can be a problem because as a parent, if my kids see me as the guy that just is laying around and not being intentional, not working hard, not setting the example, what did they look up to, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to follow suit, and next it's a generational thing. So and I've seen it, and I'm not the oldest guy in the world, but I'm not the youngest guy in the world, but I've seen generations where people that I've grown up with who blame society and they blame other institutions for their lack of success now have kids and grandchildren who are blaming society and blaming institutions for their lack of success. And so I think it's on you. Like, you really have to just decide what's important to you and go out and do it.
Yeah, I make it a point anytime I'm around my daughter. Her and I were spending a lot of time together this past weekend, and I feel like if I'm not doing anything, even for like an hour, I had 1 hour, it's like I just want to watch some football for a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's in the back of my mind. I'm like, if she sees me doing stuff, she sees me productive. If she sees me busy and constantly, when I'm not just with her, but kind of in my own time, just doing something to better myself, I think that's a more positive message. So I try to, be cognizant of that.
Sure thing. Yeah. And even though she doesn't see the hours that you put in, right? She doesn't see the work that you put in. She didn't see that you were actually up before everybody else in the house in the morning, either working out or going to work early. What she sees is dad sitting on the couch with a remote. And
exactly.
And then what tells our kids is, well, that's what you do.
Yeah.
When you're not working or you're not at school and you're not doing anything else, you just sit on the couch with a remote. And so that's something that, especially lately, as my kids are getting older and they're starting to, obviously kids are like sponges and they'll start adapting to anything that's around them. Mm-hmm. And so it's important for us to set that example for not only our kids, but think about coworkers, think about your employees. If you're that boss that consistently comes in after hours, and I don't mean after hours, I mean, you stroll in late, eventually your team's going to start strolling in late as well because they're following suit.
Appreciate the message. Love the article. A couple of final questions for you. First,
sure thing.
If for whatever reason, somebody who's been listening to the Shadows podcast, and I don't know why, especially after our 50th episode, has not already headed over and checked out Llama Leadership, tell our listeners what all y'all do over there.
Sure thing. So Llama Leadership is a lot of different things. First and foremost, it's 4 great friends that have a connection. We started off as all active duty senior NCOs working on resiliency programs, emotional intelligence, teaching and training folks across an installation quite a few years back. I retired. We all started moving our separate ways, but we wanted a way to stay connected with each other. And so we started a blog site called Llama Leadership. And that blog site is really a lot of great articles that we've written and that we've had to write. Bodie, you're one of our guest authors.
Mhm.
And it's really a lot of different perspectives pertaining to life, learning, and leadership. So while it's called Llama Leadership, we really want to focus on everything related to life, learning, and leadership. We also have a podcast called the Llama Lounge. And that's something that's been a fun trip, a fun adventure over the past year and a half. We've been putting out episodes every week, and we have guests from military leaders to scientists to you name it, people with interesting backgrounds and dynamic perspectives. And so we just try to talk about some fun stuff and some thought-provoking stuff. And it's a great way to learn something new every single time you listen.
Yeah, actually, I had a student the other day who asked me, "Hey, I need a good leadership podcast," and I always hate plugging mine. I don't know why. It's just I'm so. It's gonna eventually catch up with me one day, but I always feel bad saying, "Oh, well, the shadows." But I was like, Llama Lounge, check out Llama Lounge, and so yeah, royalty check sent. Me.
You got that. It's on its way. It's on its
okay,
way.
got it.
Got it. Hey, by the way, I do the same thing for you as well. So
yeah, exactly. Looking out for each other. But final question for you.
Sure thing.
Book recommendation for our listeners.
Man, there are so many that I can choose from, and it really depends on what they're looking to do.
Let's go leadership.
Okay, I think leadership, probably one of the best ones I can think of is The Way of the Shepherd.
I love that book.
That's a great book. It's easy,
not
to
too
read.
long. Yeah.
No, it's a short book, easy to read, and I used to not be a fan of the story type leadership books because I always looked at leadership books like textbooks, but this is a story, and it's a quick, easy read, and you can fly through it pretty quickly. And it's just really how we should treat the folks that work with us, the folks that we have responsibility for. We treat them like sheep, and not that they're blind followers, but we care for them, and we point them in the right direction when we need to point them in the right direction, and we give them the attention and concern and care that they need.
I'm gonna go get that shillelagh.
That's a great book.
Yeah. No, I had someone recommend that one to me when I went through the course that I currently teach. When I went through there about 5 years ago, one of the senior NCOs in there said, "Got to read this book," and I wasn't big into reading at the time, so I'm like, "Thanks, man. I'll check it out." It took me about 4 years to read that book until I eventually got a copy. But it's not too long. It's
sure thing.
It's not one of those 600-page books. It's just like you said, good story, good read. Definitely recommend it to anybody. We'll have that in the episode description for this.
Yeah,
as well.
You can honestly probably read it in a few hours, in a couple hours, if you really had the time to just dedicate to it. Yeah,
I think I read it on a Sunday afternoon or something.
Sure thing. And if there's a book that I could recommend when it has to do with attitude and decision making, it would probably be Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. That book, I first read that book in my undergrad, like a long time ago. It was one of the textbooks in my undergrad, which is surprising because it was my undergraduate's in human resource development. So when I got that book, I'm like, this doesn't look like your standard textbook, but it's by Viktor Frankl. I encourage anybody, it'll change your perspective. It'll change the way you look at your life and how you deal with things that are handed to you. And if for those that aren't familiar, Viktor Frankl was a prisoner in Auschwitz. His entire family was murdered. But he, throughout that time in his imprisonment, he carried that attitude that it's up to me how I respond to these situations. It's up to me to determine what my happiness is going to be. Great book.
Yeah, we'll have that one in there as well. I haven't read that one, but I'll definitely have to check that one out.
Oh, and it's another short book as well. It's
nice.
Excellent book. Yeah, it'll change your life. I tell you, all four of us, excuse me, or all four of us on the Llama Leadership team have all read that book. I think, like I said, I read it years ago in my undergrad, and I think for some reason, maybe we all picked it up as part of resiliency trainers,
Mhm.
because there's in the original master resiliency training that came out, there was some Viktor Frankl quotes in that original training that came out. And so I think the other three guys picked up on it then.
Yeah, we'll definitely have that one as well. I got to pick that one up because I haven't. Right now, I have like 12 books that I've got to read.
Oh yeah, I
But-
got several.
But I still go to Books a Million once a week.
Yeah, people
makes-
keep handing me books. Hey, you should read this one. And I'm like, I don't have time.
It makes no sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, I appreciate you doing this. Appreciate you jumping on here. And you've actually been on both shows where Joe Bogdan is not.
Who? I don't know. I'm not sure who that is.
Yeah, he's-
Joe. Oh,
Yeah.
Joey Suitcases. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Joe
probably
Bogdan.
heard his name before. Yeah.
I might know him.
But yeah, so you've been on both of our shows right now. And so just to throw that out there at him, but we're definitely gonna have to get you back for a standalone Shadows
Sure thing.
podcast episode. So we'll definitely make that work. But final comments for listeners out there.
Hey, just first of all, thank you, Trip, for you've been a friend to the team. Trip and I have never met in person, but we've had several face-to-face
We haven't,
Zoom
have we?
conferences. No, we have not.
No.
We have not met in person.
I'm
but
like
we've known
6'4".
But we've known each other for a couple of years now, it seems, through Llama Leadership and through Shadows Podcast and all that stuff. So first of all, thank you to you for just being a great supporter of the Llama team. And then for all the listeners, keep supporting Trip, keep supporting his projects. He does amazing stuff. He gets some phenomenal guests. And I'm not even talking about me or the leadership team, Llama leadership team. I'm thinking of the amazing guests that he gets all the time. That every time he tells me, hey, I got this guy. I'm like, how did you get them on your show? But he does amazing stuff. And if you're interested, check us out, llamaleadership.com, or you can go to, you can just search Llama Lounge Podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're basically, if you got an Alexa, you just tell Alexa to play the Llama Lounge Podcast. And I said that, and my son's Alexa just turned on. I got to be careful. So yeah, you can ask Alexa to play the Llama Lounge Podcast, and she'll do it for you.
I haven't tried that with Shadows. I need to. It's
Yeah,
probably something I should do.
probably.
Yeah. If y'all had a fan club, you remember back in the day, like the mail-in fan clubs.
Yeah,
and you get, like, a certificate and stickers and all that stuff. I would be like a fan club president of Llama Leadership if there was such a thing.
I think so. I think you would.
Yeah.
You're part of the Llama Leadership family, man.
At least like
You
a
are.
regional
Yeah.
fan club president. So, all right. Well, Scott, thank you so much for doing this. Folks, that's going to conclude this episode of Rise from the Shadows. We want to thank W. Scott Greene for joining us on this episode of Rise from the Shadows. Tell everybody, make sure that you join us for upcoming episodes. October 15th, we will have Amy Wade. She is a current commandant of the Langley Airman Leadership School. And on the 29th of October, we have Scott Mason. He's going to be here as well. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure that you're following us on Instagram. You like our Facebook page, and that you keep giving us feedback. Let us know how we're doing here on Rise from the Shadows.